My name is KEELEY Moss. I'm the lead singer, songwriter, artistic munchkin of the band KEELEY. A constant, ever-changing, shape-shifting, encircling whirlwind of many moves and many moods, just constantly moving. My family were in a constant state of disintegration / mutation. I'm passionate about two things: music and true crime. And the whole purpose of my art and us as a band and all the songs and the artistic labyrinth we're in the process of building is to bring those two worlds together. For the first time, it hasn't been done. And in particular, one true crime case, which is the unsolved murder of Inga Maria Hauser. 6.5 years ago, I read in a book about Inga's story, and I became absolutely fascinated about her and really moved deeply by the circumstances of what had happened here. And I was mystified by the case, and I was really intrigued about her as a person, and I found it really very deeply touching and tormenting what happened to her and the way it happened and where it happened and how it happened, hold up. But I needed to know more. So as I'm singing those songs, I'm reliving what I imagine those moments were like for her as she travelled through England and Scotland in the first week of April 1988. So it's sort of like I'm burrowing a hole through the past and reaching into the past. As it gets ever further away, I'm sort of trying to hold on to that sense of time and of someone special slipping further away from the grasp. First of all, hearing the Pet Shop Boys, that was the first music that I ever connected with. I just found their music very emotional, very literate, it had real depth and intelligence, and it seemed to allude to something deeper and darker than the frothy pop music of the time. And I was a very young child when I heard this, but I was aware that I was on the periphery of an understanding the more I listened to the Pet Shop Boys, the more I listened to those songs. But with my next musical love, which was the Smiths, which was the band that made me want to be in a band, and the band that I fell in love with when I was a teenager, and were my world. Other girls and boys, have crushes and have like teenage loves. My crush was the Smiths and still is the Smiths. All I wanted from the moment I fell in love with the Smiths was music and a life in music, and it's all I've wanted since. Somehow it's kind of like being able to incorporate and integrate Inga and her story into that musical passion. From something that happened very organically and very naturally. It wasn't something that I sat down and sketched out. It very much came from an emotional place, and it's like she and her story reached me and reached my heart in a way that nothing else had and nothing else has. And I think she has allowed me, or has granted me posthumously, and very much unwittingly, she's given me the ability to be able to write in a very emotional way about someone and through someone and to someone who I never met and I never can meet, but who I have this spiritual or quasi-spiritual experience with every time I sing about her or write about her. So there was a series of kind of like magazines called Murder Casebook, published every week or every fortnight, I think. And each installment would be a different case and would delve really deeply into each particular case. And I remember buying part 2 as a 10-year-old. I was all about the case of the Yorkshire Ripper, and I just became fascinated about the case and the lives of the women who had been murdered, and the circumstances involved, and where they had found themselves, and who they were, and when it happened, and just all of the mystery. And I've been fortunate to actually, have meetings with PSNI Detective Chief Superintendent Raymond Murray, who's actually been overseeing me in this case for the last 15 years. I've sat in on meetings with PBS, which is the Northern Ireland Department of Public Prosecutions. So I've been able to gain a real understanding of all the various different facets of the case, and that's helped to inform my understanding and my view of the case overall. And Shadow on the Hills, yes, it was written in the small hours. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, which is when I write most of my songs, and I at the time was trying to write a B-side. A B-side was new. I'm very much a believer in giving value to people, and I love the idea of the flip side. It's something it's sort of a lost art in a way, but most of my favourite bands, the Smiths, Suede, Blur, they all have really quality B-side. It is the most direct love song that I've written, and it's a very unusual love song in that it's written to and about a person I've never met and will never meet, and who died 34 years ago. I met Alan when I was going through one of the worst weeks of my life. I was at a real point of desolation and almost disillusionment, and I put this out online and ostensibly looking to form a band, and Alan replied, and we met. He wanted to produce me, and we decided we'd just start work together and start working and making an album together, and everything has really grown from there. Signing to Dimple Discs, releasing the EPs, and building the band with Marty and Tim, but it really all stemmed from that initial meeting with Alan, and just finding a producer like him is so important for an artist, because he interprets my ideas perfectly. Oh yes, well, my bandmates Marty, Martin and Tim are all very different from one another. Like, the four of us are all very kind of different, and yet I think those differences make our band. Drawn to the Flame is very much the starter that will lead into the main course, that is the debut full-length studio album. Both of the albums are intertwined and interlinked, and are companion pieces to one another. The full-length album will include all of the songs that are currently in the live set, and I think only when both of those albums have been released will the panorama of what we're trying to achieve be properly visible and audible and edible to close the meal, the culinary theme and meal metaphor.